Thoughts on that one? We've stopped doing some of our telecom services forecasts. We've suspended them for about a year. So there are certain categories of telecom service that operators are just not going to be bothered with in the next year. They're going to say, I just want to run the office more cheaply, more efficiently. I don't have time to launch new services. So saying many of the service launches of particularly new, smarter software services will be canned. The reason we stopped updating our forecasts is we're fed up telling people it's zero. So there'll be selective growth in there. The ones that I'm sort of predicting are location-based services are pretty strong, and anything looking at effectively optimization of the customer service interface. So my BlackBerry doesn't work all the time properly. My iPhone doesn't either. Anything which enables the increased customer retention through better service there is great. But services trying to sweat extra revenue from gambling or gaming, I'm not quite convinced there's the big growth in there.
Mobile broadband?
I think from the customer service at the end point of that, yeah. The pure bit pipe of broadband, yeah. But paying extra for additional applications at the end, I'm not as convinced that, other than the pure bit pipe, that there's a big growth this year. Future years out, yeah. But this is a year where I think people are looking at consolidation and back to basics type stuff. So if I could get my mobile broadband cheaper, great. I wouldn't pay another £10 a month for shiny new things completely. With the exception of location-based services.
Hi.
In that case, what did you mean by collaboration?
Yeah, collaboration things like instant messaging,
So OCS,
document management systems, yeah. MOS type stuff.
Ewan.
Okay.
Just a thought, is that if you see that Wikipedia just recently went through a funding round by basically asking for donations,
Yeah.
is that maybe not a sign that as times get hard, then all the workforce that manage to pay themselves elsewhere, then they're willing to freely give of their time, is no longer available to a lot of these, let's say, new business models.
Yeah.
And what will happen to them in 2009, 2010? So the whole open source community, will a lot of these guys be busily looking for jobs rather than spending their time giving for free?
Yeah. It's a good thought. I mean, when I first did one of these forecasts, it was down in the grass market, and open source was one of the themes then, if you remember, three and a bit years ago now. At the time I was saying the biggest open source company on the planet's IBM. IBM makes more revenue out of open source than anyone else. There's more developers doing open source than anyone else. There are profitable open source companies and charitable open source companies. Profitable ones are actually doing quite well at the moment. If you look at the last set of Red Hat results, they're pretty good because of the sustainable revenue model they've got. They'll probably suffer less than some of the traditional software players. Because having one bad quarter when you're dominated by license revenue can be a really shocking quarter. When you've already got 70% of your subscriptions in the bank at the start of the year, it's hard to have an absolute shocker unless all your customers go bankrupt. So I think the smaller guys who are currently in sort of semi-charitable status or in skunk mode startup, some of them won't carry on through. But the bigger open source ones, I think, will actually be one of the healthier places.
David, can I ask a question? The high street may be having a bath, but retail online sales doing all right. Are there opportunities in that for Scottish businesses, any businesses?
Wow. So big question again on retail. We were having a discussion last year about retail. I think there probably are some opportunities in there. I remember the discussion last year when I wasn't so sure about retail and spent some time going through it afterwards. And I think the categories that I put on it last year were probably ones that made me undercall retail. So we talked about e-commerce systems last year, if you remember, and I said there was probably less growth in e-commerce than some of the questioners were having. Largely because I classified e-commerce a lot narrower than anyone else did. So I think there are e-commerce applications and e-commerce potentials out there, particularly just joining it up from the not just the shop front, but all the way through the fulfillment channel as well, the complete end-to-end customer process. I think there are opportunities in there that Scottish companies can go to, but less on just the sort of showy shop front, but on the full integrated e-commerce chain behind it. So that was one area I think I called badly last year.
We'll let you on.
I admit to it.
Any further questions, because we're just about to
Yeah.
break and have some networking, but I've got a couple actually here. So, can I take John first and then John? John.
Right.